Howdy, y'all. My name is Will Watson, and I'll be doing the Nationals 2023 topic analysis over the public forum debate topic resolved. The United States should adopt ranked choice voting for its federal elections. In this topic analysis, I'll be going over some framing and background, then looking at the pro, con, and figuring out what sort of arguments are accessible to both sides of the debate here before we go into a little more just kind of general analysis and my predictions for what our national tournament rounds will look like. Special thank you to Champion Briefs for allowing me this opportunity. If y'all haven't checked out Champion Briefs yet, they're a great source for any sort of debate material you could require, along with just a good way to get a quick summary of the arguments you're likely to face at nationals, because nationals is a different beast than most of your local and even national level tournaments. I would doubt that many of you have competed at a tournament prior to competing at the national tournament. I highly recommend you do practice rounds at the individual team level and maybe even find some squads to go ahead and do a couple inter-squad tournaments, because trying to compete without that sort of background and without having competed previously on the topic is always a bit of a losing game. So be sure to push yourself and really try hard, and congratulations on making it this far. My background is I got my master's at the Bush School of Government and Public Service in international affairs with concentrations in intelligence, defense strategy, and grand strategy. Before that, I got my bachelor's at Texas A&M University, focusing on international studies with a minor in Russian. This topic is a little more international than I'm personally used to, but I really enjoyed the research I got to do for this video, and I'm happy to share it with y'all. Moving on to the topic, resolved, the United States should adopt ranked choice voting for its federal elections. It's one of the more straightforward topics we've had in a couple of months, and I'm pleasantly surprised with it. According to the Congressional Research Service, or CRS, and on 12 October 2022, ranked choice voting, RCV, is an alternative voting system that allows voters to rank multiple candidates on a ballot in order of preference. So if it is John, Jack, and James running an election, you could say that John is your first priority, Jack is your second, and James is your third. Instead of having it where you pick one of those candidates, you get to rank them in order of preference. It's been used extensively in Australia, where people are required to fill out all of the ballot, and it's been used in several elections here in the United States. I recommend that you pull specific examples over which counties have seen success and failures in those elections, and look to Australia as an overall case study. So let's dive straight into this and look at a couple of the framing questions here. If we analyze the topic, there are a couple of words missing that we've seen in previous topics. For example, it says the United States instead of the United States federal government. What that means is whenever we're looking at how this would be implemented, you can get into whether this would be implemented everywhere at the state level using the magical power of fiat. That is to say that because the topic mandates it, the United States, each individual state, would do it 100% with agreement. Or you could say that the federal government mandates it. And that can change how your topics are perceived. So I recommend that you spend some time looking at what the implementation of the United States doing this rather than the United States federal government. If we look back through previous public forum topics, starting in the September topic with high-speed rail, we saw it was United States federal government. Then going back in the just going through all the topics now, we have seen a couple others this year that just say United States. In the United States, right to work laws do more harm than good, versus the technology of the United States federal government topic should take the action. So try to spell out why that difference could matter, or say that it doesn't matter and we shouldn't be debating implementation. There's a debate over if we should debate the should versus the would of the topic. Now, if we look at it, we should be debating the should, but the would can help kind of frame the way we're analyzing the topic. So I recommend spending some time at least thinking about it to be prepared about that debate. Another question I have is, what type of ranked choice voting are we dealing with here? Because generally speaking, there are two types of ranked choice systems. You have an instant runoff system versus a proportionality system, and I have a hunch it would be an instant runoff system. But I think you should dive into what you think this topic is asking us, because an instant runoff system has it where the person who gets the most amount of first choice votes, if they get a majority, they immediately obtain that office through the natural process. But let's say they don't get a majority, and of the candidates, if there's 3 candidates, let's say they each get 33% of the vote. At which point, a candidate who, so let's say it goes 33, 33, and 32, and there's 1 candidate left that gets 1%. The candidate with the least amount of votes gets eliminated, and all of the second choice votes that they had goes to the available candidates. And the votes get distributed, and it's an instant runoff to save us the hassle of doing additional runoff elections. I recommend that you pull up some YouTube videos on this and give yourself some visual aids to help illustrate how this sort of ranked choice voting works. That's usually how it's been done whenever you have a single office we're running for. So if you were voting for your mayor, or if you're voting for president, where one person will fill one job. And especially with the topic being federal elections, you vote for one House member, one senator. So it likely would be an instant runoff system. But the other way it can play out is a proportionality system, where if you are trying to fill multiple seats, let's say that for whatever reason on your ballot there are 2 senators. Maybe someone passed away while in office, or maybe something has occurred, or maybe the system's changed as a whole. At that point, you put in order of your first and second, knowing that you could be electing 2 individuals to one office, whoever gets the highest proportion of votes. Really spend some time on YouTube finding visual aids for this topic. They really helped me understand it as a coach. The other question I have is how the rest of the ballot would work, because it's just adopting it for the federal elections, not adopting it for the statewide elections. So you could have a ballot where one part is ranked choice voting, the other part is not. It's important to try to put yourself in the mind of the average American. Many individuals in speech and debate are exceptionally gifted minds, and I'm proud to be able to work with really, really gifted kids at my school. I know that not everyone has an easy time filling out a ballot, and there could end up being a little bit of a problem if you're trying to switch rapidly between the methods in which you're filling out a ballot. That seems really trivial, but think about if you work a completely separate job, you don't do anything, and then you're told to fill out this ballot at the end of the day. If it takes more time, maybe there are more lines. So there are some questions about how the rest of the ballot would work. And finally, there are questions over if there's any extra cost, who would cover it? Is it the state, or is it the federal government? Digging into these would questions about implementation will help you frame the topic and could be included as an observation at the top of your case. There are former bills that have discussed ranked choice voting at the federal level, and I highly recommend that you look some of those up. So let's begin by looking at the pro. The first pro argument that I will guarantee is at nationals is very general. It's that elections become better. For whatever reason, maybe it's that we have more candidate diversity, maybe we have better argumentation amongst candidates, harder policy positions, less politicization of the election. Regardless, we could see better elections. Warranting is going to be critical here because there's a lot of research about why this could make our electoral system better. That it could encourage third parties to run, for instance. That all of a sudden your first choice may be Republican and your second choice is Libertarian, third choice is a Democrat. At that point, if the Republican doesn't win, maybe enough votes would go toward the Libertarian and you have a third party in office. Similarly, you could have first choice Democrat, second choice Green Party, third choice Republican. So you could get a little more third party involvement. The second argument I want to talk about with the pro is that it could be more democratic. That all of a sudden, instead of having it where someone magically passes the 51% threshold and they're automatically elected, you could have it where the rest of the ballot matters. Where if the person gets 51% of the first choice votes, great. But if they get 30 or even 49% of the first choice votes, but then none of the second choice votes, maybe they don't win that election. And maybe that's a good thing because maybe another candidate was 20% of people's first choice, but then 80% of people's second choice, and you have a happier electorate. Um, with the pro arguments, I really think stressing the importance of democracy and the importance of America modeling democracy can be crucial. You can say that current events have had it where the American electoral system isn't as trusted as it's been in the past, and that's led to instability abroad and impacted out to the benefits of democracy. There's a common theory called the democratic peace theory that democracies are less likely to go to war with other democracies because citizens have more power. That's to say that if I'm voting for a senator or a president, I don't want to vote for someone who wants war. Where if you're a dictator, you can declare war and aggressive action whenever you want. So stressing the importance of democracy can really give the pro a leg up in this round. Um, Furthermore, you can say that this would encourage more people to vote, that we have a more participative or more participation in the democratic process, which the pro could say would rebuild some trust in our election system, that more people are involved, more people are trusting. Let's switch to the con. And I think the con gets to address a lot of practical issues and has some evidence on their side. The first bit for the con should be electoral distrust, that more people will distrust the election. Remember, instead of bubbling in something, people now have to play with numbers. I don't like numbers. That's why I had a major in liberal arts. I think that people could get a little confused by the process, especially if it's something new. Historically, people have not done well with new things connected to the ballot process, and this is backed up by evidence. According to Commonwealth Magazine, regular elections see 2 to 3% of ballots thrown out due to mismarking, while ranked choice voting typically has 10 to 11% of ballots that are uncounted in the final tally. We have a system that confuses some people, and so they don't fill in their ballot properly. I think that just stressing that, hey, this may not work because people won't fully understand it is a path to your judge's ballot. Think about it this way. If your judge had to go ahead and instead of ranking one team or putting one team as the winner, one team as the loser, if maybe they had to add up all of the speaker points and decide who won based on that, that would complicate the process. Some judges have trouble picking a winner and a loser of a debate round. Making it more complicated makes PF more complicated, the same way ranked choice voting would make our democratic process more complicated according to the con. There are some ways to spin this, and I think debaters should be very explicit in the way they spin this. The other thing that factors in for the con is that results could be delayed. Math takes time. And I think keeping your con case as simple as math takes time is a path to your debate ballot because it takes time to count up all of those votes. And the American populace is impatient when it comes to its elections. For better or worse, ranked choice voting may take more time than our traditional voting method. And by having it where more time is needed to count ballots, there's a chance that would increase distrust in our electoral process. Finally, sometimes with ranked choice voting, it's not apparently clear or easily understood how the majority vote works. If one candidate gets 20% of first place ballots, but wins because they got 99% of second choice ballots, the majority did not vote for them to hold the office. Excuse me. We could have people confused by this process. That may increase some distrust in our elections. The final thing I want to stress for the con is that there may not be much of an impact here. According to 538, Fair Vote tracked 398 single winner ranked choice voting races in the U.S. since 2004, and 97% of them were won by the candidate who got a plurality of first place votes. Very rarely has the system gone to the second and third pick. It's only been the first. I think stressing that, hey, one, it's unlikely this has much of an impact. Two, it's very likely that more people are confused. Maybe those two things are related, and I think the con could spin a very persuasive narrative. The aspect I think both sides have a little bit of leverage with here is a spin on a politics disadvantage that we've seen in policy debate. The way a politics disadvantage works in policy debate is you identify that in the implementation of the plan, remember this is policy, in the plan, it would cost X person political capital. That would influence their chances of winning an election, which means they could or couldn't pass X policy, which is good or bad. I think there's a version similar to this that plays in public forum, where if you could say ranked choice voting benefits Republicans or Democrats, pick one, then you get to say that X policy would or wouldn't get passed. From there, you can say that this would have a positive or negative impact. So if I'm the pro, I could say ranked choice voting could improve Republicans' chances of getting elected, which would allow them to pass a monetary relief policy, solving for inflation. Or I could say that it would improve Democrats' chance of getting elected, which enables them to pass pro-climate policies, decreasing climate change's impact, having benefits for the United States. Trying to stick to as middle of the aisle as I can here. But I think you get the gist, where we have a system that could benefit one party. From there, you say why it's good it benefits the party, or you could say it benefits one party, and if you're con, say it's bad. That maybe you want to say that having it where Republicans get a higher percentage of electoral office or Democrats get a higher percentage of the Senate is a negative thing, and then spell out why that's a bad thing. So I think there could be some really specific argumentation, and that's historically worked well at nationals, where you tell a very, very specific narrative. I've seen a lot of teams in good out rounds that have good narratives where they focus on a really niche topic. That gives you two advantages. One, the specificity plays well to judges. Judges like it whenever things get specific. Two, the more niche of an example and the more of an expert you are, traditionally the less of an expert your opponent is. It does give you a little bit of an element of surprise. As long as your narrative is accurate, I recommend going with a specific narrative. So let's take a step back and look at some of the overall analysis. I think the pro gets to be a lot more of a wild card than the con on this topic. That's because the pro gets to generally talk about what a better election looks like. The con will bring up a lot of problems with ranked choice voting that the pro gets to say exist in the status quo. That right now people are already confused by ballots. Well, we might as well make them more confusing because people are already confused. So I see rounds playing out, though, where the con gets to dive into really specific impacts. Ranked choice voting has been tested. We've seen pros and cons before, so the team with the best empirics will win the round. Focusing on the past is a great way to set yourself up for success in the future. Play to your strengths here. If your strength is not as a quantitative debater, focus on the qualitative narrative of good elections. Focus on this can generally improve people's outlook on the electoral process, and I think you'll do just fine. If you are more of a quantitative debater, dive into the statistics. They are here for the topic. I really think y'all are going to have a blast with it. Enjoy this domestic topic. Take care, and best of luck at nationals, whether you're supporting your team or going there. T's and G's, y'all. Take care.